Jai Hind everyone. I am Achintya Pandey as a assistant professor in IT department at Akgec Engineering College. Okay, today I will explore about function, various types of function used in C++. Okay. Okay. In last time we have discussed inheritance. Today we will discuss types of function basically. Okay, which is in object-oriented programming as well as in the language C++. Okay. So, we will explore the varied function in C++ programming. So, first what is functions? Function is basically you can say so many modules, independent module, different module. Okay. So, function is a self-contained block of a statement that perform coherent task of some kind. Okay. Suppose you want to write some code. And you want to execute this code at say n different places, n different locations. Okay. So, one way is to write the code in some module, say a function, and you simply call that function. So, you need not write that particular code everywhere where it is required. Okay. So, function are used to provide modularity. Okay. In different tasks and you club all together, okay, all together, right. So, function are used to provide modularity on a program. Creating an application using function makes it easier to understand, edit, check errors. It allow to structure program in a segment of code to perform individual tasks, right. So, in C++, a function is a group of a statement which is given a name and which can be called from some point of the program. Okay. So, there are two category of function. One is library function, which is already defined, and these library function are defined in some kind of header file. Okay. And one is user defined function, means user can create their own function depending on the requirement, depending on how many modules they want to use or create. Okay. So, depending on whether a function is predefined or created by programmer, they are categorized in two categories, library function and user defined function. Okay. So, user defined functions. So, what are the syntax of function? So, if you want to use functions, we need to clearly mention the return type of function, function name, and the name of argument, type of argument. Okay. So, there are three things. One is return type, then function name, then the parameters. And parameter could be, parameter means it's a type, what type of data type, as well as the number of argument which can be used in the function. Okay. Then we could write the code. Okay. Okay. So, return type says that function will return, suppose if you want to write int or float or cat, means this function is particularly going to return int, integer number or float number or character. Okay. Parameter are, you can say, argument which can be passed depending on the nature of the function. Okay. So, function prototype declaration. If a user defined function is defined after main function, compiler will show error. Okay. It is because compiler is unaware of user defined function, types of argument passed to a function and return type. So, function prototype is basically the declaration. Okay. Like if you want to use variable, we must declare the variable what the type of. So, similarly, before using the function, we need to write the prototype declaration of function that tells the nature of the function, and that tells the compiler what is the return type, what is the name of function, how many argument is going to take, and all that, right. Okay. For example, here we are going to use sum function which takes two argument, say x and y, and this sum function is basically going to add two number, and in this example we have used the return type as a integer. So, this function will return some integer value. So, this particular the program is basically simply adding two number by some function. Okay. And so, it is just illustrating how we could use function. So, here this is the number, this is function calling which takes two argument a and b, right. And since it is going to return some integer value. So, this when it is going to call, this particular definition will get invoked, and and the definition include return x plus y. So whatever we are going to pass, say if we pass A and B, if we have passed A and B means 10, 20. So this formal argument will simply copy 10 and 20 and it will return 10 plus 20, this means 30. So it will return to the point where it means called. So this 30 will return here and it will collect it in the variable C. So it will print 30. So so on. So declaring, defining and calling function. Declaring means prototype declaration, and in this declaration we simply need to mention the return type, function name and type of argument, how many types, all that, right. Defining means you are going to write the code, so that is called function definition, and calling means when you call the function, the definition gets executed. This is the meaning of declaration, defining and calling a function, okay. So a function can be called in C, call by value and call by reference. Means by passing the value to the function, function can be called, and by passing the reference. Reference means you can pass the address of the data, address of the variables. So this passing is called, this passing value as a, address of a variable to the function is called call by reference, okay. So this is just simple illustration of call by value and call by reference, okay. So call by value. So here say calc is a function which takes an argument x. So x is 10. So this is called function call, right. In C, in a function call we simply write to name the name of function and simple argument. So we will pass the 10, okay. So once this function gets called, simply it jumps to the definition portion, and here x become x plus 10, mean 10 plus 10, it is 20. So x become 20, okay, and it will simply return here. So print a %dx, this will print 20, okay. So call by value. So there are two types of, in this case the actual variable x is not changed because we pass argument by value, hence a copy of x is passed which is changed, and that copy value is destroyed as the function ends. So the variable x inside main still has a value 10, okay. This is an important thing. See, there is a scope of here its output will come only 10. Why it comes 10? Because the scope of this x, suppose here we have passed the x, means we have passed the value 10, okay. And once we pass the value 10, this x will simply be what? 10, and x could be manipulated to 10 plus 10 means 20. But this 20 will become only in this scope, okay, because this is the simple variable automatic storage class, okay. So its scope becomes local. So x what we have modified here will change only in the scope of this calc function. So if we want to print x here, then this will print 20, but we are not printing here. So once it will return, it will again will have the value 10, okay, because it cannot change, okay. Why? Because the scope of the variable is local. So it will only change in the block where it has been modified, not out of that block. So if it say when the definition over, then it will return, but the value will remain 10 because it is out of the scope, okay. Suppose here if we simply print a %dx here, in the definition of calc, then it will print 20, okay. So this is an important thing, okay. Now, so again return x. So here will be C. Here, the same program, but we can change this program to modify the original x by making the function calc return a value. So like we have used calc int x. So x is 10. So x become, we have passed 10. Okay, print a %dx. So now calc x equal 10 and return x. Okay. So return x means x equal to 20. Okay. Actually, return x. So there will be used int calci. Okay. Then and only it will return. Okay. And here it will be used int calci. Then it is okay. Okay. So there are two ways to call a function. One is call by value and other is call by reference. So in this we have used an example of call by reference. Okay. So call by reference means we are going to pass the reference. Reference means address of a variable. Okay. So here calci. So this is the prototype declaration of this function calci, where the return type of function is void, and we are going to since we are going to pass address, that's why we need to have a pointer which can store the address. That's why we have used pointer as an argument, because we are going to pass the address. Okay. So here x equal to 10. Now we have passed simply address of x. For example, say in memory, suppose if this is the memory, so this is say a variable x whose value is 10. Okay. Now suppose its address is say 1000. So we have simply passed the address of x, means we have passed 1000 in calci. So printf %dx. Okay. So once this function gets called, simply it's a formal argument which is a pointer which will store the address, means p will be another block and which will store simply 1000, that is the address of x. Okay. Now this particular statement star p ka matlab, star p means value at p, means value at 1000 will be value at 1000 plus 10, and value at 1000 is what? 10. Okay, plus 10. So automatically it will evaluated as 20. Okay. So now if we are going to print x, then this will simply print 20. Okay. But suppose if we have simply called that function, it will not, if we simply call by value, then it will not print the 20. It has print simply 10. Okay. So once we pass the address, so by address we can manipulate, we can change the variable like here. Okay. In previous example, we cannot change. Okay. That was the error. Okay. So there are two ways to call a function. One is call by value and second one is call by reference. So in call by value, we simply pass the value. In call by reference, we simply pass the address. Since we are going to pass address, so we need to require a pointer which will store the address, and by making the, by use of the pointer, we can simply edit or change the variable indirectly. So here the variable which is x becomes 10. We have manipulated by simply writing star p equal to star p plus 10 becomes 20. So this is the way. So just by manipulating pointer, just by writing this particular statement, the value of x gets changed to from 10 to 20. Okay. So there are these various way of function which could be used in C++. Types of user defined function which can be used in C++. Function with no argument, means a function can exist without any argument. Okay. Function with no argument and a return value. Okay. Function with no argument and no return value. Here function with no argument and return value. Okay. Function with argument and no return value. Function with argument and a return value. Simple. So these all are some types of user defined function categories. Okay. So here we can say see no argument passed and no return value. For example, void prime, there is no return value, simple void, and there is no argument. So this is the prototype declaration. A function prime, this particular function is going to check whether a number is prime or not. Okay. So simply we call this prime. Once we call the prime, this function, its control jump to the definition portion. and it will simply check whether the number is prime or not. Okay, so what is a prime number? A number which is divisible by either 1 or itself. Means if any number, a number could be prime if it is not divisible from 2 to a number less than 1. If it is going to divisible by from 2 to any number less than, I mean 1 number, then it will not be prime number. That is the simple logic which we have shown here. Okay. So this is particular, enter a positive integer to check, say num for I equal to 2, I less than or equal to num by 2, I plus I, if num modulo I is whether equal to 0. So this is not prime number, simply come out and it will see it is not a prime number. If it is not so, then it will be the prime. Okay, that is the simple logic. Okay, next category is inline function. Okay, so what is inline function? So if the definition, I mean just a single line of code or 2 line of code is there, we can make a function inline. So if we make the function inline, means the function, the definition is just where it been called. Okay, so this particular function become the inline function, and inline functions, the cost of call simply gets reduced. It will simply behave just like as a you can say just like as a macro. Okay, so normal function and inline function, the difference is simply reducing the cost of call. Okay, so calling a function generally causes a certain overhead like stacking argument, jumps, then return from the point where it been jumped, okay, and so on. And thus for a very short function, it may be more efficient to simply insert the code of the function where it is called. Okay, so so once a function comes, simply define there itself. Okay, instead of performing the process of formally calling a functions. Okay, so this is called inline functions. Okay. Okay, so preceding a function declaration with the inline keyword, okay, specifier, inform the compiler that inline expansion is preferred over the usual function call mechanism for a specific function. This does not change at all the behavior of a function, but it is merely used to suggest the compiler that the code generated by the function body shall be inserted at each point the function is called, instead of being invoked with regular function call. So only difference is the cost of call is reduced, because once we make the function inline, it will simply behave just like a simple, like as a macro. Okay, so the overhead of jumping from the point is been called to the definition and then coming back from the definition to the, where it is been called, and evaluating stack all, this will be eliminated in inline functions. Okay. Okay. So in C++, inline function is a powerful concept that is commonly used with classes. If a function is inline, that compiler places a copy of the code, that function, copy of the code of that function at each point where the function is called at compile time. Okay. So to inline a function, place the keyword inline before the function name and define the function before any calls are made to the function. Like here, say max is a function which is going to return integer and it takes 2 arguments. We have simply make this max function as a inline function. Okay. So we just see that where it been come, simply we have defined here. Okay, means return x when it is greater than y or y. So there is no need to simply just define somewhere else where it's been called. So okay, so here we have simply defined. So this max 2010, okay, and this is the simple string max 2010, and this is been called max 2010. So it will print simple 20, okay, and so on. Okay, so we can make a function inline. We can make a function inline, and this particular inline function reduces the cost of call or reduces the overhead, which is simply found in a normal function. Okay. Now, second type of category is friend function. Okay. So what is friend function? So in C++, we could use the friend function. See, a class contain member variable and functions. Okay. A class will have data and function. That's all. So the data are variable is called member variable and the functions are called member functions. Okay. So a class contain member variable and member functions. Okay. Now member function are allowed to access only the data which belong to that class only. This is the limitations, and you can say this is the advantages even, because by that data becomes more secure. Okay. The encapsulation feature comes. Okay. So a function defined inside the class cannot access the data of some other class. Okay. A function, suppose there is a class A and there is a class B. So we have defined a function in class A. So this particular function which is defined in class A cannot access the data of class B or any class. Okay. So that's why we say that member function is allowed to access only the data of member variable. I mean, member variable means function which is defined inside a class is allowed to access only the data of that particular class. They cannot access the data of, say, another class. But there is a utility of friend function. So if we are going to use friend function, so this is the utility, and by which we can access even the data of another function to which this particular function is going to make friend function. So by making friend function, we could access the member variable of another class even. Okay. Although it is defined in the class, but it is not in the scope of that class. So this is the utility. So friend function is an utility and through which we can access the data or member of another class even. But in that class, we need to make that function friend function. Okay. So this is the way. So like here we can say that we have a class box. So this particular print width function is friend with the box. Okay. So this particular this is the friend function. So this friend function we can make with, say, class, say, another class with the friend function. Okay. Here it is not shown, but this is the I mean meaning of the friend functions. Although this print width is a friend function, but not particularly shown that to which particular class it is friend. We can make even. Okay. Even we can make the entire function of a particular class as a friend function, but just by declaring that particular class as a friend class. Okay. So here we can see here this is the nice illustration of some function, like we have used add function, and which is a friend function, and this particular add which is a friend function to both class A and B. So this particular friend function, that is add, is defined inside class A, but it is also friend to the class B. So this type of declaration is called forward declarations. Okay. Because although it is defined in class A, but we want this particular function to friend with that particular class B. So we need to require that class to be declared forward. So this type of declaration is called, because there is a need to tell compiler that B is a class. So that's why we have this particular declaration of the class, where we have not defined anything, simply declaring the class B as a class. So this is called forward declaration. Okay. So now this is the class B, and here we have simply used add function. So add is a friend function to both class A and B. So this particular add function can access the data of class A as well class B. So this is the illustration of a friend function. This is simple syntax how we are going to, because friend, there are certain characteristics of friend function, because as friend function, in general, friend function takes argument as object as its argument. Okay. So this is simple, the portion of syntax, like add. So A object A, B object B, like, so this is the argument of friend function are object particularly. Okay. And we have simply accessing the A and B data. Okay. and we are simply making the summation of two numbers, right? Okay. Then another category is called recursive function. So what is recursive function? So recursive function basically use the concept of recursion. So recursion is it is the process where we could define something in terms of itself. So recursion is something process which is called, or it is the process where something can be defined in terms of itself. Okay. So recursion concept, the concept of recursion can be implemented with the recursive function. So a function is called recursive when a function call itself. Okay. Like, so we can simply make the recursive call. Okay. So a function that calls itself is known as a recursive function. For example, here recurse function call recurse. Okay. So this particular, this way of doing calling is called recursive function, and the function which is used is called recursive function, and the process is called recursion. Okay. Simple. Example of recursive function, like we suppose here factorial. For example, we can make a function, factorial function as a recursive function. For example, factorial 5 equal to 5 into factorial 4, right? So simple. Here factorial. See here, enter a number which is factorial. For example, we are entering 5. So in n it comes 5. Factorial of n equal to, we have called simple factorial n, means factorial 5. So in this particular n, it will copy simply 5. If n greater than or equal to 1, yes, it is 5. So it is greater. Return n into factorial n, means 5 into factorial n minus 1, and if that is factorial 4. Factorial 4. Simple factorial will again called itself. So n greater than or, yes, n is now 4, and it will simply call 4 into factorial 3, 4 into factorial 3, and so on. Similarly, 5 into 4 into 3 into 2 factorial 2, and once it get 2 into factorial 1, and factorial 1 is 1. Okay. So when if it is say 1, it will simply return 1. Okay. So by this way we can calculate. So recursion is through recursive function we can make call recursive. Okay. And we can define a function in terms of itself. Means a function call same function. Okay. So this is called recursive function. So this is all about, some illustration of types of functions, user defined function, system defined function, or predefined function, and some category of some different category which is going to use in C++, inline function, friend function, all that, right? So this is all about. Thank you everyone.